Hi, it's Chrissy. Wanted to take a second and talk to you guys about what I think is the most important document in an offer for buyers and sellers. So looking at a transaction, when you get the purchase contract over, it comes with a lot of documents, and this is the one that I think is the most important one for both buyers to have and sellers to look at. And that form is this one right here. It is the pre-qualification form, and just to clarify, the one that I'm looking at, and then I'll be referencing the numbers off of, is the Arizona Association of Realtors, the AAR form, updated in February 2017. Over here, you'll see that date. So why is this form so important? This is what backs your offer. So if you have a Joe Schmo off the street come in to buy your house, and he's offering you, say, $5,000, $10,000 over your asking price, and all he has to say is, I have the money, I'm good. How are you going to respond as a seller? Are you going to believe him? You don't know him over any other buyer, versus if you have a buyer that comes to your table with one of these forms that's completely filled out, and I'll tell you what each of these things is so you know what you're looking for. How likely are you to go with that buyer? So, and as a buyer, having this form prepared before you go out to see homes is also a great step to have. It's a very important step to have, because when you find a home of your dreams, that home could go under a contract while you're trying to get this form done. So getting this done prior to heading out, huge first step already done. So as we go through here, we can see the purpose of this form. It is to be used in conjunction with an AAR residential purchase contract. So that is to be used when you submit the offer. So if you see on all of our residential purchase contracts, it says that the pre-qualification form is included. So next, on line 3, buyer has not consulted with the lender. So when that box is checked, it means that the buyer, if you are the buyer, has not talked to a lender. And if you're a seller, you're looking at that and saying that, hey, no, this buyer hasn't talked to anybody yet. The next lines right here are lines 4 and 5. They have your name and your signature there at the top. Your name if you are the buyer. If you're the seller, you're looking and seeing that's the buyer's name. So line 6, we have the lender listed on lines 36 and 37, which are down below. I'll get to those at the end. Has consulted with blank, the buyer. So those are the buyer's names that go in there, and these are the facts that the lender will be submitting to, meaning that he has looked at these and he can verify these facts. So number 7 says the marital status. Your buyer is married, unmarried, or legally separated. Who's buying this home? What's the marital status? What are their tax status? What are they doing? Next, number 8 is buyer is or is not relying on the sale or lease of a property to qualify for this loan. So what this means is, are you selling your house? Do you need to sell your house in order to purchase this home? So say I qualify for a loan up to $300,000. I want to purchase a $500,000 home. Where's that $200,000 going to come from? It's going to come from the sale of my current home, and so that's why this box would be checked. I'm upping myself into the next home. I can qualify for this loan. Here's where the rest of the money is coming from. So that is line 7. Next, that is line 8. Sorry about that. Line 9, we look at the buyer is or is not relying on seller concessions to pay for buyer's loan costs, impounds, title and escrow costs, recording fees, and if applicable, VA costs not permitted to be paid by the buyer. So that means, are you relying on seller concessions? So purchasing a home, there are other fees that come at closing. There's the title fees, all these fees that we just listed, title, escrow, recording, all those fees that are outside of it. The loan that are cash to close. So that's what you bring to the table at closing to close on the loan. So if you have that in reserves, you have that saved, the lender checks that box and saying that the buyer is not relying on seller concessions. If you don't have that and you're asking for the seller to help pay for those, then the box is checked, the buyer is relying on seller concessions. So as a seller looking at this, you see that box, and then you go back to the purchase contract and see, if you as a seller see that the buyer is relying on concessions, you go back to the contract and see how much those amounts are. So next, line 12 is the buyer is or is not relying on a down payment assistance to qualify for this loan. So there's a lot of DPA programs out there. If the buyer is relying on a down payment assistance program to get the loan, that box would be checked. If the buyer is not, that box would be checked is not. So next up we have the type of loan. They're all listed here: conventional, FHA, VA, USDA, and other. So the type of loan here, usually we have cash in there. So there are different types of loans with different requirements. So as a seller, you're looking at these to see, what type of loan are they using and what requirements am I going to have to meet. Conventional loans have a different set of requirements from FHA loans, which have a different set of requirements from the VA loans and the USDA loans. They're all different. Your agent will be able to go through all of those with you. So when you're comparing the offers, they might be different. If I'm offering on a property with a conventional loan versus a FHA loan, depending on the requirements that the seller is prepared to meet, you check the box right there. Or the seller will check this box to see what buyer they select. Next is occupancy type. On line 14, you'll see right there it says primary, secondary, or non-owner occupied. Will this be your primary residence? Is this where you're going to live with your family? That's the majority of the homes that we have. Secondary, is this a second home? Is this a vacation home that you're qualifying for to purchase? And then last is a non-owner occupied home. Usually these are our rentals that are checked. So this home is being used for XYZ, you'll know as a seller. So the property type next, on 15 and 16, we have the different ones listed here. Single family residence, condominium, planned unit development, manufactured home, mobile home, vacant land lot, or other. So different loans fund differently according to the type of property that you are purchasing. So that box is checked because the lender will have checked those requirements and know, hey, this is the type of home and this is how much we can fund for this home. Next up here, lines 17 through 19, these are lender lines, and they check these boxes, yes, no, or NA, depending on if they apply to the transaction. So line 17 says, lender provided buyer with the HUD form for your protection, get a home inspection. This is for FHA loans only. And so on line 13, if you have FHA loan checked, then on line 17, yes, on this line should also be checked. On other loans, it'd be typed in as NA. Line 18, lender completed a verbal discussion with buyer, including discussion of income, assets, and debts. The lender has talked to the buyer. If you're the buyer, the lender has spoken to you about your income, your debts, your assets, and how that applies, your financial strength and your buying power, and how that applies to this purchase. As a seller, you're looking at this knowing that the lender has had a conversation with the buyer about all of these things. And then the last line is lender has obtained a tri-merged residential credit report. They've pulled your credit to know, what that credit history looks like. That also goes into your interest rate and all of that information that's in there. Because say Joe Schmo off the street that we talked about earlier, he's coming in, say Joe Schmo has a history of not paying people back. He borrows money, he doesn't pay him back. You don't know that as a seller, but the lender will have had that discussion with him and pulled the report to know what they can qualify for. Next line here, 20 through 23 is the amount of the loan and the payments. So 20 reads, based on the information provided, a buyer can qualify for a loan amount of blank. So going back to that $500,000 home that I talked about purchasing, if the loan amount is $300,000, that's what this line right here is going to say. Buyer can pre-qualify for a loan amount of $300,000, assuming a monthly principal and interest payment of blank. So how much will that payment be? What does $300,000 look like in a monthly payment with the loan amounts and interest amounts that the lender has calculated? So provided that the total monthly payment, which includes principal, interest, mortgage, insurance, property taxes, insurance, HOA, and flood insurance, if applicable, does not exceed blank. This amount is higher than on 22. The amount is higher than the amount on 21 because the amount on 21 does not include all of these items that are listed out here: the principal, interest, mortgage insurance, property taxes, homeowners insurance, and HOA fees. Those add on to your payment every month, and so that's why those two numbers are different. Line 23 is interest rate not to exceed, and it lists the interest rate that it will not go over. So it can be below, but it will not be above what the amount is on here. So next here we have 24 through 28, and these are the initial documentation received. So as a seller looking at these documents, you can see, or looking at this section, you can see what the lender has looked at. Have they looked at pay stubs to verify income? Have they looked at W-2s to verify income? Have they looked at personal tax returns? So all of those speak to the funds that the buyer has. Next, over here on the other side, right here, we're looking at down payment reserves documentation. If you are not selling a property to purchase the home, do you have the down payment available to purchase this home. For different loan types, there's different down payment amounts, and the lender will speak to you about that and make sure that you have those reserves documented somewhere to purchase this home. The next line is gift documentation. If part of your down payment is coming from a gift, then we have to have that documented, knowing where the money is coming from for that down payment. Next, credit liability documentation. The lender has looked at your credit report, has reviewed all of it, has done his due diligence and done his research to see what you can purchase. And line 29 here is for additional comments. We sometimes have lenders write in there, if you are purchasing a property that's $500,000, you're pulling $200,000 out of your house, they'll write in there that buyer can qualify for a $500,000 home, and they write it in there. So the next lines 30 and 31, the buyer has instructed and lender agrees to provide loan status updates on the AAR loan status update form to seller and broker. This is what the lender provides to the entire team involved with the transaction to make sure that the loan is on track, because the loan goes through several steps on the other side for the lender, and they provide that update upon request. Well, first it's 10 days and then upon request to make sure that the loan is going smoothly and we're all going to close on time. The next line's right here for lender information, 32 to 40. This is all of the lender's information in here. They put their company, they put their license, they put their name, their NMLS ID, address, email. This is how we get a hold of them. So as a seller's agent, when I'm looking at this pre-qualification and offers, I have them all lined up. The offers are close. I'm going to be calling the lenders. I want to see if these boxes are checked right here with documentation provided, and then I want to talk to the lender about what stage in the process is this buyer in. If the buyer has completely finished all their documentation, they're fully underwritten, that's a pretty strong buyer right there, because they've gone through all the steps necessary to purchase a home. So right here too on line 35, it says the above pre-qualification expires on. The pre-qualifications come with an expiration date because they can't be good forever. So they're in there so we can see at what point does this expire and does it need to be redone. Usually it's a quick process. If you already have one in place to get it updated, the lender will review your information again and issue a new pre-qualification. Last line down here is the buyer acknowledges receipt of a copy and grants permission to broker to submit this pre-qualification form with the contract. So as a buyer, you will have seen this prior to submitting your contract. It's part of the packet that you do sign, and acknowledges that you have seen this and you're giving permission to submit this with your offer. You're saying, hey, I've looked over this, I agree with this, I want to make an offer on this home, and here is my word or my the actual paper that backs me up saying that I can purchase this home. So that is the pre-qualification form. I think this is super important. As an agent, the first thing we look at when an offer comes in is the purchase contract. We look at the purchase price, the down payment, all of the conditions that the buyer is asking for, and the next thing we do is we go for this form. We're looking for the pre-qualification. We're looking to see how qualified is this buyer. We're doing that for our sellers. We're doing it for, to help them make a decision. If they have any questions on the types of loans or the stability and confidence that the lender has in the loan, we call the lender and find out. So very important step. It's the first step of home buying is to get this form, and as a seller, this is a really important form to pay attention to. So I hope this information is helpful for you guys. My name's Chrissy. You can find me on Facebook at thelittle.helperaz.com. Thank you guys so much for watching.